So if we're in the key of, let's go back to G, because I've written out a bunch of examples in G that are on another sheet. You guys can download. There's a sheet called 2-5 licks in F major. We'll go to F. I take it back. I put it in F because the tune that's the king of 2-5s that really gives everyone a chance to work these ideas out is Honeysuckle Rose. That tune is 4 bars of 2-5s. And you can even put them in other places. But the first 4 bars, if we're in the key of F, again, a 4th time, then we're back at the 1. So I wrote this stuff out in F because I thought Honeysuckle Rose is really a tune. If you haven't been playing this stuff, if you haven't thought about 2-5s and how they can bring you into another chord, Honeysuckle Rose is the tune for you to work on. So we're in F. I'm going to play a 2-5 into F. I go up to the 2, G minor 7, the 5, C7, the 1, F. Here's G minor 7. The same way this was A minor 7. Move it a whole step down. And now we somehow want to access notes from the 5. So we need to start getting our ears familiar with what notes resolve where. This can resolve a half step down, and it's immediately showing us something else. This half step down takes it onto the major 3rd of a C7 chord. That's a very powerful thing to move. To the 1. Watch this. I'm playing the 3rd an octave lower. And then to the 1. So let me play a few different patterns, because the other thing that I think is really nice is to begin to understand how other notes in the chords resolve. If I'm playing, I can resolve a half step down to the C, or I can, and there we get our 13. That's the moment when we pull to the C, and what are we playing? If we're playing a C underneath, and we've got this A in there, and it's a C7, we've got a C13. So we've got the 7 can resolve to the 3, the 3 can resolve to the 13, we've got a 7 down here, can resolve again. What about the 5 of a G minor, the 5th note of the chord, can pull on its own a series of half steps to the 5 of the 1. This is just, a whole step. The 2 is just a whole step above. So we've got this movement. This movement is what we've listened to again and again and again in Lester, in Charlie Christian, and in Louis Armstrong. And this is the flat 9 of the 5. In case you didn't catch it, I know I keep drilling home every lesson, but these are the extensions. These are the upper extensions of the chords that really make a listener be like, okay, actually I'm listening to jazz and not a honky-tonk band. I'm resolving to the 6, By resolving to some of these notes that are extensions instead of notes that are found in the triad of the chord, you're already opening up all this different, color and texture in the music. So 7 can resolve down. The 3 can resolve. The 5 can resolve down a half step and then pull to the 1. Any one of these things can resolve a whole bunch of other ways too. I'm just pointing out some of the more obvious flavors that you'll hear again and again, and things that you should start thinking about as you try to arpeggiate like a minor 7 chord and then some version of a dominant chord. The 1 of a 2 chord. The root of a 2 chord. Where would that resolve? Start thinking about how this is going to get to a note that's in the 5, the C7. And one answer is that it already is there. It's the 5 of a C7 chord. This is coming right out of... I'm thinking about this C7 shape. Another place it can resolve is it can move up a half step. I'm taking this G minor 7, I'm moving this up, and if that case, I'm outlining a C augmented. Or what I did the first time, which is... I played an E major chord to an F. So there are all kinds of ways, and it goes on and on and on, and one of the primary, believe it or not, one of the primary creative jobs of any improvising jazz musician is to come up with novel and yet satisfying ways of articulating this type of movement. I don't know how else to say it. It's a very, it seems, believe me, I feel ridiculous having devoted this much of my life to just thinking about this type of harmonic movement, pulling to the next chord and how to do it. But that's the truth. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this stuff and working on little ways of doing it. So I wrote out a few different ways on this 2-5 licks page. And we can go through some of this stuff. These are just some very, very kind of elementary ways of doing it that I think point out the chord and point out the movement in very clear ways. The first one is letter A. We're playing a G minor 7. We resolve down a half step by playing. Think about what I'm doing. I'm playing, again, we've moved now to a C7. I'm playing the 3, the 9, the 7, the 3. I'm bringing it up a half step to resolve to the 1. That's the other part of the equation. What happens on a 5 chord to resolve to the 1. That's letter A. Letter B. Very similar. I'm just omitting the 9. And making this very, very straightforward C7. The 3, the 1, the dominant 7, the 5, the 3, and then to F. Letter C is these are all taking their ideas and their notes from very straightforward triad and 4-note versions of chords. There might be a dominant 7, or there might be a 9, but it's very like, there's no crazy extensions. I'm playing this G minor. Then I walk up. Instead of going down a half step from the 7, I go up a series of half steps to get to the 3rd. Then I approach the 7 from the 13. I have the 3rd now, and I resolve to the 1 of the F. Letter D. How do I do this? In this case, this is a G minor 7. Slide down a half step. I'm playing something basically out of a C13. And I'm bringing home this resolution. The moment that it resolves is right there. That's where it gets to the C. And then again, that same motion. So you'll notice that in these, I'm trying as often as possible to do this sort of stuff that Barnes does, where there are lines, there are melodies within all this jumble of notes. It might be that this stuff speaks to me because it comes out of, I don't know if it comes out of, but it shares a lot with 5-string banjo technique and repertoire and way of hearing things, where you've got these melodies that are like ping-ponging around in between a lot of notes from chords, of arpeggios doing what's called rolls. And Barnes, you saw in the example of I Can't Give You Anything But Love, that's a roll. Right? These are arpeggios just moving in one direction, forward. Right? So I think that, it's important to realize on something like, let's see, with the last one that I did, which was, yeah, let's just go. That's the melody. Those are the important notes to hear. And they're just moving down diatonically in the key of F. But they're surrounded by other things. This is how I hear Barnes's approach. When he's playing, when he plays over going from the, when he's going to the E flat and he's taking us into the key of A flat, that's right, he plays a B flat minor, E flat, and takes us into A flat. I'm hearing this as so that's where the downstroke and how you come up with a right hand technique that really emphasizes certain notes and lets other ones be quiet, almost ghost notes. That's where the downstroke thing can be really useful. And one of the keys that I do when I'm working on this stuff and when I'm looking at a player like Barnes or Charlie Christian, who are so heavy on downstrokes, is I'm thinking, what are the notes that really jump out? And I want to make sure that those notes are the ones that just inevitably will work with your technique to be the loud notes. My hand is basically just snapping the last ones. All right, letter E. Is that right? Oh, sorry. This is the one that, I think I discovered this lick and I was like, oh my God, this is everything you ever need to know. Sorry. Sorry, it took me a moment there. In this case, we're introducing some extensions and a little bit more, color to the thing. Begins with this descending G minor, and then again, the 7 resolves to the 3 of the C. But now going up, we're playing the flat 9 of the C7. And we're resolving here to the F. This stuff, you can throw this stuff in. I mean, the sky's the limit. In that case, I doubled up the time. So I did a full bar. Probably the most useful thing with this is if we could parrot one another, and that's what I would do if we were all here together. But try to do it when you listen to music. When you begin to hear where the 2 5s happen, where are these moments that the soloist is about to bring you into another chord, stop the recording when you hear it and try to figure it out. And they get easier and easier and easier because you start identifying immediately, like, oh, well, that's the 7, that's the 3, Here's another one. Sorry. I can't read the tablature at all, and I keep looking at it and thinking like, oh, I must have written something different. Again, G7, G minor, C7. Experiment with different flavors. Lastly, the last two, I just want to include a couple that have stuff that I do all the time. This is coming out of what Barnes was doing on I Can't Give You Anything But Love. So we've been taking all these 2 5s out of this shape for the 2 chord, going here to the 5 chord. So again, I'm thinking or, but I'm thinking definitely like, that's my root. That's my root. C, F. In this case, instead of going to play a G minor, I'm going to be playing. And again, even with this, you can finger it any different way. But I do it like this, and I do it like this very often because it gives me immediate access to this flat 9. So what I have is or is that? Oh, I have it. That's what I have written. I try to come up with ways that this stuff just like sits really well. If I'm playing like because that just like just sits under the fingers. It's like relatively, stress-free in terms of getting around. And where you're doing an upstroke and where you're doing a downstroke, help the swing. The last one that I have, just letter H, I have... Really, is that what I have? That doesn't sound quite right to me. Well, I don't know what I was thinking of that one. That's a little bit much. I know what I was thinking. I'm trying to introduce this business of hearing this note, which is the descending thing. Remember when we went... Because it relates, again, to this little Barnes line. Barnes does this stuff all the time, and I think that he's doing it out of this type of minor chord. So listen to this. Here's my minor chord. And I'll play this really slowly. What I'm trying to do is do this series of downstrokes that are basically doing a roll, almost like a banjo roll sort of thing. And at the same time, I'm trying to have the root of the G minor chord walk down chromatically to the third of the C7 chord. This is all part of this movement in this sort of resolution business. I'm thinking about... So, poke around on this stuff. I've included a Etude that I wrote that is a total knuckle buster. I don't think that anyone's going to be playing it anytime soon. But I put into this thing tons and tons of these little little landmine licks. All the stuff that I'm discussing is like in this little Etude, including a lot of these arpeggios that we were playing, where we're playing diatonic arpeggios. Right? We're playing these diatonic arpeggios just on 2 strings. A lot of this stuff is in this same thing. And what I'm trying to do on this is I'm taking the melody of Honeysuckle Rose and I'm trying to do what George Barnes did to the melody of I Can't Give You Anything But Love. I'm trying to make sure that the melody is there, but the notes get displaced and they get surrounded with other things that are filling in harmonic information. So the second time I play it, first time I play it, second time, that's actually what I played. Again, I have this that's what I have after that. So if anyone feels like it, you know, have fun poking around on this stuff, on this Etude, and there's a bunch of like probably difficult but all very, very clear ultimately. Like I really went through this and put in exactly the fingering that I'd be using, exactly where I'm getting this sort of stuff. So that's a little extra credit, or for those people that you know, already feel really familiar with these kind of arpeggios. Lastly, I'll just take a minute before we go to questions and play you a little bit of improvising over Honeysuckle Rose using these types of these shapes. Again, I'm going to try to just think about 2 different shapes. I'm playing G minor 7 right here to a C, and I'm thinking G minor 7 here, or begin to, you know, realize like the ways these things are all connected. This is why the whole business about the shapes, as much as I understand it, and I certainly use it and found it very useful when I was learning, which of course we're all still learning. It's still the case that I see the root of the chord, or the third or the fifth, and I see a whole bunch of different shapes that work around that. So what I mean by that is, here's the G. If I want to make this G minor, I know there's a G minor, I know there's a G minor, I know there's a G minor, I know here's a G minor 6, G minor 7, and all of these notes are still, I'm thinking about, that's my root, right here on the second string. So I'm just going to play out of these two positions, this and this, or this and this. Here I go. That's just over the 2-5 section. And I'm just thinking about each time I'm playing one of these minor 7 chords, I pull to something to like direct us into the 5 chord as well. So, you know, this is probably a lot of stuff, and I hope it hasn't been too boring. But this is really, like I said, this is the stuff that I was trying to avoid, and I realized there really is no way to avoid it. We just have to like get in and start working on this stuff.